if we can get their help, we can make as many face shields as are needed.
We need to continue supporting these small businesses.
If we don't have accessibility to the water, how can we disinfect our hands?
How do you screen large swaths of populations quickly?
For one, how is it possible for oil prices to go negative? And two, what does that even mean?
Hey guys, I'm Jennifer in New York.
And I'm Karumi in Tokyo.
It's April 24th, 2020.
And here's Quick Takes wrap of the pandemic this week.
If you're used to tossing pizza dough in the air, making face shields has to make the most sense, right?
Here we are at a pizza shop, we're making PPE. There are people that are in desperate need of equipment. It's almost like a no-brainer. Well, can we make those things so that people can have those things and stay safe, and so that we can then continue to exist as a business? Our new business is now making face shields. Immediately, I started calling on all of my friends. Guys, I know this is gonna be crazy, but people need face shields. There's no supply of them. I'm pretty sure that we can make them. Can we do this? I didn't think about our ovens at all. That was like farthest from my mind. Even though they're just sitting there doing nothing, we could always give it a shot. And we did, and it worked. First thing that we do is we get the correct size of acrylic. We get the holes drilled where the straps are gonna attach. We take the acrylic, we heat it until it's malleable. We pull it out, we put it around the mold that we've created. We let it cool. If you leave it in too long, it burns, just like the pizza. If you don't leave it in long enough, it doesn't bend. Once you have the face shield formed, then you have to attach the straps, and you have to attach the piece of foam for the forehead. We try to get the word out, hey, we're making these face shields, who needs them? Because what we realize is there's a lot of small organizations that have a desperate need for these, for this PPE, and their one or two suppliers that they use, they're out. I have 20. If you need more or you have any feedback, tell me. We got a lot of donations. Hopefully we're able to get more, and we can keep bringing them if you need them. The GoFundMe campaign was started because there is an enormous need for this PPE, these face shields, and it's a need that is hard for some of those organizations to be able to pay for. And so we thought that if we were able to raise funds, we would be able to give away the face shields for free. We are ready to produce 5,000 face shields each week. You have all these people that are sitting at home, that they still have their jobs, but they're powerless. And we have an opportunity to act, and if we can get their help, we can make as many face shields as are needed.
For refugees, social distancing and practicing proper hygiene is nearly impossible. Here's what it's like to live in the largest refugee camp in Greece.
If we don't have accessibility to the water, how can we disinfect our hands just with soap?
The refugees are really afraid of this dangerous virus. Today I want to show you the daily life of the refugees here. This is the main entrance of the Moria camp.
This place was built just for 3,000 people, and right now around 20,000 people are using from that limited place. All the things are impossible to do inside this camp. As much as possible, they are trying to do as the regulations WHO has released. We don't have accessibility to the 24-hour running water. The water is just limited, very limited. 2 hours in the morning, maybe 1 hour at noon, and half hour at the evening.
Right now, I'm going through to the food line all the day 3 times. Thousands of people are coming here, standing for hours and hours waiting.
It's impossible to be with distance with each other.
Inside these tents, we are living about several families in one tent. All these people are waiting from hours to go to the doctor.
These people need to be moved from the camp, starting from the vulnerable.
They just carry out some vulnerable people from this camp, but it's not enough. Where I am coming, I bring my family to the Europe. Is this Europe? This is not like Europe. This is an island, and all the island is surrounded by water. No one can go anywhere. This is like a jail. Countries that they have abilities, they have good technologies, they have really problem with this virus. If this virus gets into this camp with this overcrowding, who will come and who will help on that situation, these people? No one will.
More than 40% of those who have lost their lives to COVID-19 have been African American Michiganders.
What is happening in the Black community is devastating.
Similar scenarios are happening to the Black community all across America. What's happened with this pandemic over the past few weeks is really exposing many of the racial inequalities that have been in place here in the U.S. for centuries. And now a group of McKinsey researchers is warning that the consequences to people of color aren't just health related. All right, Donald, so you were able to talk to some researchers from McKinsey who took a look at the impact of the coronavirus on the Black community. Tell us what some of their findings were.
It was almost like a paradox, I guess you can say. Black people were more likely to be in jobs that were more at risk. So they were more likely to be in jobs like service jobs, like restaurant workers, daycare workers. They were more likely to be laid off during the shutdowns because things just weren't open. But then also, paradoxically, they were more likely to be in what we call essential jobs. So they were more likely to be grocery workers, healthcare attendants who had no choice but to go to work. So you had this double whammy of people who were more likely to be at risk from being basically forced to go to work, and then people who were among the first to be laid off.
What surprised you in your analysis of what they found?
The thing that surprised me most was that there was no real common thread between the locations where the outbreaks were. So one of the main places, epicenters, was New Orleans, for instance. And then we compare that to a place like New York. We say New York, well, it has major transit hubs. It's so densely packed. People use lots of mass transit. And then you have places like New Orleans, which is not that way at all. It's not very dense. It doesn't have much mass transit, and yet you still see these huge outbreaks of just hundreds of people dying, predominantly African American and in some cases Hispanic.
And for people who don't know, let's talk about some of the health risks to the Black and Brown community and why they are more vulnerable to this virus. What is it that you found?
So you have things like diabetes, hypertension, which raise the mortality rates up tremendously. And what the researchers basically found was that a lot of it had to do with diet, which goes back to like structural issues of racism. Detroit, for instance, a few years back, there were no supermarkets within Detroit city limits. So what you have in that instance is people, instead of going to supermarkets for food, they go to convenience stores, they go to fast food restaurants. So they get high calorie food, lots of sugar, lots of salt. So that leads to things like high blood pressure, hypertension, diabetes, and obesity, which makes the virus more lethal.
There are some people who are saying that, there's even preferential treatment given to like who's being tested, right? Like some Black and Brown communities don't feel like they are getting these tests that, the rest of the communities are getting. Have you been able to dig into that a little bit more?
He found that wealthy neighborhoods, whiter neighborhoods, were much more likely to be tested than lower income neighborhoods with large non-white populations. So you have this double whammy of not only are Black and Hispanic neighborhoods less likely to be tested, but they're also more likely to have the disease in the first place. So it's just an issue of massive undertesting that has to be corrected if we want to stop the spread of this disease.
Chef Eduardo Jordan knows how hard it's been for restaurant workers, so he's turned his kitchen's focus to those who need it most.
The million-dollar question is, how long can we keep this going? I think with the support of the community, we can keep our relief kitchen going. That's my goal. We're going to go all the way until we can't anymore.
How's everyone doing? Feeling good in the neighborhood? Yeah.
Our current state of business is now a relief kitchen and commissary kitchen for feeding displaced workers and those in need. We were one of the first states to have a documented case of COVID-19. It really started affecting our business. We were starting to see a decrease in revenue and people coming out, all the way up to like a 50 to 60% decrease. And Washington State Governor made an announcement on March 15th that restaurants and small businesses will need to close unless they're essential businesses. You know, we really had to pivot. I have 3 locations on one block here. I knew that I could not have 3 takeout restaurants. It wasn't even gonna be feasible. I got a phone call from Chef Edward Lee, and he asked would I be a part of his initiative, the Lee Initiative, which is his nonprofit organization. And we were gonna focus on feeding restaurant workers that were displaced, and we're gonna be on unemployment and give them a hot meal each and every day. And so that was the start of what we're doing at Solari, and also the start of what we're doing currently at June Baby Restaurant.
Today's menu, we're featuring a grain salad. We have several different ancient grains. We did some roasted beets, and then we're serving it with diced ham. I actually donated from one of our purveyors. And then we have some essentials and some snacks to get you through. What temperature are we at? Whoa. Like I'm the coach and I'm the cheerleader. So I'm out here trying to make sure that the numbers still line up and that we're not going in debt, that I'm filling out all of these PPP forms for the loan stimulus checks and things of that nature.
One of the most important things that we need to take away as a community and a nation is that we need to continue supporting these small businesses, the mom and pop shops. The fabric of these cities are these small businesses that actually make them up. So we're experiencing it. You know, I would hate to start lowering and cutting staff. So I hope that this doesn't last long. I know that there's going to be some changes to our business structure and our business plan in the future. We're going to have to make some pivots and changes, but I think the most important thing is that our country gets safe and healthy. We figure this all out. You know, we're only going to be bigger and better and stronger if we can get through this.
I'm Sarah Ponsek, and I am a markets reporter for Bloomberg News. This past week, we witnessed history in the making. Oil prices dropping below zero for the first time ever. However, that created a bit of confusion. For one, how is it possible for oil prices to go negative? And two, what does that even mean? So to understand this, let's first set the backdrop and understand the environment that we are operating in. The coronavirus has essentially shut down entire economies. Not many people are really out driving cars right now. Planes aren't flying. Factories are shut down. That means demand for oil is very, very low. In fact, the International Energy Agency, they estimate that we are on track to see the largest annual decline in oil demand on record. So with that in mind, let's turn to the price of oil, because this is where it gets a little bit wonky. When we talk about the price of oil, we're not actually talking about the price of a physical barrel of oil. Rather, we're talking about the price of what's called a futures contract. It's a type of financial instrument. You can think of it as a Wall Street legal agreement. If you are hypothetically going to buy a futures contract of oil, what that means is that you are buying barrels of oil at a certain price, taking on the obligation that that will be delivered to you at a certain date. Yes, you will be delivered actual barrels of oil. And that is where the problem lies. Because there is so little demand at this point in time, where you would typically store oil is essentially full. Pipelines, tankers, also those who would usually buy and want the physical oil, like oil refiners or airlines, well, they don't want it at this point in time, meaning storage is a burden. So on Monday, when we saw the price of oil, it was essentially the contract for May delivery drop as low as negative $40 a barrel. That means that people were paying people to take the oil off of their hands because they did not want to be stuck with it showing up at their doorsteps when they have nowhere to store the oil. So what does this mean for you? You might immediately think of the price of gasoline. And yes, the price of gasoline and oil are related. However, they are indirectly related. Oil prices are already extremely low. Gasoline prices are already extremely low. AAA shows that if the average price of a gallon of gasoline around the nation is around $1.80. However, you should not expect that anyone is going to be paying you to pump up your car anytime soon. At the same time, another way that this might affect you is your portfolio of stocks and bonds, your 401k. There is a sense that this could potentially bleed over into other asset classes, even though this was very much a technical factor at play. Many investors highlighting that what this does show is that oil is saying the economy may not rebound as quickly as the resilience we are seeing in stocks might suggest, for example. So what that means is the next couple of weeks may be very, very crucial.
One small county in Colorado is trying to test everyone, all 8,000 of its residents. We meet a couple of biotech execs, a husband and wife team behind this program.
Today we are off to Colorado, where there's one of the biggest coronavirus testing experiments there is. A husband and wife team, Lou Reese and Mei Hu, happen to be executives at a biotech company which is trying to test every single person in San Miguel County in Colorado, which includes Telluride. The company's also trying to develop a vaccine for the virus, so let's head out and talk to Lou and Mei. You have a test, a blood test, and you're looking to test all 8,000 people in San Miguel County. Is that the basics?
So antibody tests are what we use to screen blood banks, for instance, the same type of technology. So people come in, they get their blood drawn, those all get collected, and then those samples, those specimens, get flown to labs to then process. And then the lab reports the results back to the county. The idea is, how do you screen large swaths of populations quickly, find and trace down the ones that are potentially infected to quarantine them, and then also find the ones that have developed antibodies, some level of immunity, and get them back out. That's the trick.
Not only are you doing this, you also, back when SARS was a huge concern, you had done vaccine work around that, and so it seems like you were pretty quickly able to spin up some tests around a possible vaccine here for the novel coronavirus.
So, we've tested a number of different constructs. We're actually looking at them right now. They look pretty promising. They're in animals. And our hope is to get them into humans early summer.
Are we any closer to sort of knowing when we'll get the data from the animal test?
Still ongoing.
And then, Lou, not to put you on the spot, but I mean, I know you were saying that if the animal test came back good, you would sort of think about using the vaccine at that point, right?
Oh yeah,
on a personal level.
I'm totally down as long as it doesn't damage like its FDA path or anything like that. Right now we got a little bit of interim data, and I would say that we are one step closer to having the one or two that we'd like to pull the trigger on for human trials, and I'm like first in line.
It's hard to keep track of all the different vaccines and approaches that are being taken right now. But like, how optimistic should people be? Because I just don't want to give people false hope, or I just want to set expectations in the right spot.
Yeah. So the example that I give people is that, remember a few years ago when we were reading about pigs that were dying in China by like the thousands and millions and stuff? There was a mutation to foot and mouth disease. And within a month of finding out and being charged with solving that, we made 100 million brand new vaccines to a brand new strain that worked and solved the problem. So the answer is these things can go really, really fast. A lot of things have to work out together, but I think there's going to be a lot of push to solve it. One thing that is weird, actually, that's strange about doing this, it's one thing to deploy it in distant places, even if you know those places really well. It's another when you're deploying it like right there and everybody's like in it. It's really amazing.
All right, that wraps things up for us today. But remember, you can catch all of your coronavirus news on Quick Take 24/7 on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
And for a daily recap of the day's top stories, subscribe to our newsletter. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.